What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the 1% Life. I'm your host, peak performance coach and trainer, JoanieDhillon. Today, we're talking about your rules for life, and those rules that you have that are setting you up for disappointment and even failure. So, Rockstar, if you're watching us live on Facebook, drop a hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, you know what to do. Drop a hashtag replay in the comments. And if it's your first time listening to the show, put a 1 below. We want to shout you out. And if it's you keep listening to us because you love listening to the 1% Life show, drop a 2 in the comments below and let's get into this. So if I feel a little off, I've got a pounding headache and I'm working through it. So Rockstars, it is Friday today. Happy Friday to you. Hope you had an incredible week. July 24th at the time that this live is being recorded, and I'm what's coming up for me and why I did this episode, or why I'm recording this episode with you today, is because of 2 things yesterday that surfaced around this topic in particular that made me just think, if we actually listen when the universe is sending you signs, then it kind of points you in the direction. So yesterday I was on a call with my mastermind, the 1%. And one of the gals, incredible rock star, she's just amazing performer. She's so incredible in sales. She's amazing. And she was talking about a story where she was actually, a few days ago out with some coworkers, and one of her managers was commenting to the 2 or 3 people who were there outside of her about how incredible they were at sales, how they were just crushing it, that nobody else on the sales floor can even compare to those 2 people he was talking to. And literally she squeezed in between her boyfriend, who was one of the people that the manager was talking to, and the other guy. And she said, I was feeling so uncomfortable. I was so upset because I have done so much for this team and I have contributed in such great ways. And, she just was it's not like she wasn't selling right now. She is, just not to the level of, perhaps where she believes she should be at this moment in time. And this feeling of I don't know if the word was anger, but disappointment, frustration, just irritate, anger was coming up in her as to why the manager decided to behave in the way that he did, and really calling, giving accolades to these other 2 individuals and not her. And so that was the first thing that came up. And this had me thinking about the rules and the expectations that we have for other people in our life, and how we believe that others should behave, what they should say, how they should act, what they should do in their life if it's not according to our rules. How many of you get what I mean by that? And this really comes up in relationships a lot. In fact, it's recently come up in my relationship. And I didn't realize I had all these rules that, apparently are important to me. And now I'm beginning to see what some of those rules are, and that, man, holding on to this expectation that somebody needs to obey by your rules and follow your rules is a recipe for failure. It's a recipe for disappointment, because you're like, why are you not doing what I say? Or why aren't you washing the dishes in the way that I would wash my dishes? Or why did you, spill all of give the dogs a treat and there's crap all over the ground because you didn't fold up the blanket like I would fold up the blanket, right? All of these random, ridiculous rules of engagement and rules of life that, we each have. We all have our own rules, and some of us place expectations on others way more than others do. And I know for one thing, this is really coming up in my personal life, because I realize I have a lot of freaking rules as to how people should behave. And I remember saying something, my partner brought it to my attention today. And I said, well, I would have done this. And he said, well, how do why would you think that? And I was like, because it's so obvious. And it's obvious for whom? According to whom? To me, it's obvious. It's such an obvious way of behaving, an obvious way of acting, an obvious way of thinking. I would have booked the call at this time because we had planned this day off, right? And, we had planned a special day off together, and there was one of our incredible coaching clients had booked onto his calendar, and it was awesome. And the fact is, it's that, I expected him to do what I would do, right? They ended up causing, me to reflect on, wow, is it obvious, or is that just you know, what if I could just respect his model of the world, right? And so I wanted to bring this up because I want you to think about your own personal relationships and what rules do you place on other people? What rules do you place on significant others and children in your life, like that they must do things the way you want them to be done, and if it's not done that way, then like get on the board or get off, right? And it's a real recipe for disappointment. It's a recipe for frustration. It's a recipe for like, man, like relationships not working out. And we also do this with people outside of relationship, right? You heard me talk about one of my clients and her coworkers and managers expecting people are going to do what they do. They're going to behave the way they behave. They're going to think the way they think. And what the way they're thinking, the way they're behaving, the way they're doing the things that they're doing is not really a reflection of you, of course, unless you get a real trigger, it triggers you. And then I would say, well, I would look within you to see what was it that caused them to behave that way? What was it that made them show up that way for you, right? Like there's our people in our life are our greatest personal emotional trainers, I believe. And when we can look at those who especially are really close to us and say, because they tend to trigger us the most, right? Relationships are your greatest trainers. Like the person you're in relationship with is going to teach you the most about yourself if you look at it that way, right? If you look at, why did I react the way I did? What made me say you should have, vacuum this thing up, or why did these crumbs fall out of the thing? Like, what made me react that way? What is it within me that's causing me to get triggered by that? Something so benign, right? Something so simple. And so really examining the rules that you have for others in your life, and even just your coworkers, your teammates, your people who work with you and those around you. And we do this towards society as well. Well, they're thinking this way, they're behaving this way. I wouldn't do that. What idiots, they don't wear their mask, or what idiots, they do wear masks, right? Like all of these rules and these expectations that we place on other people cause us to suffer. Wouldn't you agree? It cause you to suffer. And simply one of the things that I'm certainly working towards, clearly haven't mastered yet, but is just detaching from expectations of others, and knowing that again, people are going to do what they want to do and be who they are. And that my personal rules and the way I would do things is not the only way, right? It's not the only way. And really releasing from those expectations, especially in my relationships. And I heard Tony Robbins say this recently on a training, and he said, rules, if you want to have a successful relationship, break free from your rules. The less rules you have, the better your relationship will be. The less rules you have for one another, the better, the stronger your relationship will be. The more successful it will be, right? The happier you'll be, because ultimately, if you have these expectations and somebody fails to meet the expectations, well, then you're going to feel certain negative emotions arise around that, right? Like, why did you do this? Or how dare you? Because that's your expectation. But if we start to release expectations on others and trade our expectations for appreciation, then what happens is it's like, I just appreciate you giving the dogs a treat, period. I just appreciate you doing the dishes, period. I just appreciate that you cleared most of your calendar day off to spend with me, right? And we'll work on it next time. We'll create what a day off together actually means in the future. And so we learn and we give each other grace, and we allow for us to, be imperfect in partnership. And I believe that's really important, and I'm really learning it myself, which is why I'm coming out here talking to you about this, because it certainly has come up for me in the last couple of days. And also, your clients are your greatest projections, right? I believe that perception is projection. And so when my clients show up in a certain way, where is it within me that, as I was coaching my client through this whole rule conversation last night, I'm like, oh my God, I just saw today, like, you have all these rules yourself on other people. And especially in partnerships, more so than anywhere else. Like, I feel like I'm pretty good at, releasing from judgment of, I mean, sure, I'm human, it comes up inside, but of how people behave and the way they do things and how they're respecting other people's models of the world. But in relationship, it's like, no, you don't talk to me like that. Don't say that. Or, this is the way, or that's it. like it's on my time. I will only, it's been interesting to observe being back in a relationship and being a part of what we call a conscious relationship, really working and striving towards creating and having and growing a conscious relationship, one where we learn from one another and we look at our partners as our biggest opportunities for growth and personal evolution. And so that's, what was coming up for me today. So Rockstar, I just wanted to share that with you, like, and get you to think about the rules that you have on others, that you've imposed on other people in your life, or that you're imposing on society perhaps, or on people who think a certain way because they don't think like you. And when they don't, they're in violation of those rules. And maybe even just for people who you work with as well, right? Just because you wouldn't do something doesn't mean that's the way it should be done. Just because you wouldn't do it that way doesn't mean that's the way it should be done. There's another way. There are other ways. And when we can respect other people's model of the world, and that, that's how they do it, then we're setting ourselves up for greater level of happiness in life, greater level of joy, simply from releasing ourselves from the attachment to having to have things done our way, by our rules, our playbook. And just allowing others to be, and loving them for who they are, or respecting them for who they are, and not having to agree with them. This is also really important. Not having to agree with how they think or do things, but just allowing them to be that way. So I hope you got value out of today's episode. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my day off today and go paddleboard down on the water, with my partner, which we're really excited about, and enjoy the rest of the day. So Rockstars, if you got value from today, you're listening on Facebook, please tag somebody in the comments below, share this out to your groups, your communities, help us grow and reach more people. If you're listening to us on one of our podcasting platforms, please leave us a 5-star rating if you got value today or at any point in the past, and a review. I kindly ask that of you, again, so we can grow and reach more people in the world. And more importantly than anything, go into this weekend, if you're off, with the intention to truly fill your cup, to let your cup overflow, to fill it so full that you're able to serve fully next week to your clients, your family members, and to those around you throughout the weekend and into the next week. And Rockstars, have an incredible weekend. Get out there and be unstoppable. Peace.